Em Aldridge from Bournemouth, and we moved to this town about 5 years ago and felt God call us to plant Coastline Vineyard. From the very beginning, our vision has been to be a church that loves the King and lives the kingdom, and we're incredibly passionate about seeing people's lives changed and their communities transformed.
Our community spans the entire coastline of Bournemouth, and every Sunday we meet halfway between Bournemouth town centre and a suburb called Boscombe.
Boscombe is well known as an area of social deprivation. It's an area of low income and high unemployment, an area of domestic violence and drug use, prostitution and homelessness are commonplace. It's one of the poorest areas in the southwest and in the bottom 1% of the poorest wards in the country. It's a very broken place, but from the very beginning we felt called to minister there.
In 2011, an area of Boscombe called Churchill Gardens was featured on the Channel 4 documentary Landlords from Hell. This highlighted the terrible living conditions experienced by some of society's most vulnerable people. In the documentary, many properties were shown in Churchill Gardens, but particularly one, and that was number 10 Borthwick Road. When an undercover TV crew entered the property, it was revealed to be one of the worst crack houses in the country.
So we were amazed a couple of years later in 2013 to be offered that very same house, number 10. Apparently a Christian who worked for the same landlord had said, if you don't want call-outs for violence and crime from that property, invite a bunch of Christians to move in and they'll only ever call you out for some regular maintenance. And so the landlord called us up and offered us reduced rents. He told us not to cause him any trouble, and MILLIE and a couple of our friends in their 20s moved into number 10 Borthwick Road, and the missional community began.
It began and it grew. We now have 2 community houses. We have several families who've moved into the area, plus a few local residents who've given their lives to Jesus. All in all, it totals around 25 people who've joined the community. This group started with 4 or 5 pioneers who had a dream in their hearts to see the hope and freedom of Jesus come.
So the journey started with 3 of us, and we moved in and God just said to us, be interruptible and available and get to know your neighbours. And so we just did that, and we spent the first year just listening to our neighbourhood and getting to know people and having cups of tea, and then we began to realise that nobody really wanted to live here and people really hated this area and wanted to move out if they could. And so we then just spent the next couple of years just helping people to believe that this neighbourhood really could be something and wouldn't have to be what it's always been. So freedom for this area, we really believe, looks like the fullness of the kingdom of God coming. And so often we think that freedom is like the thick woolly jumper, and it immediately comes off and there's oppression, but then there's freedom. But really we found over our journey that it's like taking one thread of that woolly jumper and just beginning to pull really slowly at it and beginning to tug at it. And then we also believe in family here, and so we really feel like our families need to spend time together but often can't afford to do that. And so we just went on a mass neighbourhood ice skating trip, and we took 60 parents and kids, and it was just amazing to see kids' confidence grow and families just spend time together doing an activity that they might not before. So we're sitting outside number 10 where 6 of us live, and we decided really early on to start to open up our home, and we discovered that people hadn't eaten around a dinner table in 10 years and they didn't have access to adequate cooking facilities. And so we thought, well, we can cook food and eat around our dinner table, and so we just started to invite people in for dinner, and really hospitality has become just a way of life for us. And so now we'll have a whole range of different people from all different walks of life. And there's something about food that really connects people. It's hard to hate people or have a social divide when you're just passing the ketchup or pouring somebody a glass of water. And so it really is at the heart of who we are, and we want our home to be a place of peace. And really because the presence of God dwells here in such a powerful way that people will often just step into the house and they will just sense his presence here. And so we really just, we want people to encounter Jesus, and invariably they do, because as we live lives that bring the fullness of the kingdom, it's so insatiable to people and they get caught up in it. And so we've baptised people in our bath, and we disciple them and do Bible studies with them, and just help them on their journey to full freedom, whether that looks like becoming housed or going after treatment or just becoming family with us where they've had no friends. And so yeah, life at number 10 is crazy and mad, but brilliant and beautiful. So we have seen significant change here in the neighbourhood over the last 4 or 5 years, but our neighbourhood's still on a journey and there's still high deprivation. But it's just, yeah, it has been amazing to see, and it's been amazing to see the community come together, and the council have been great in the way that they've looked at the housing stock and looked at people's conditions for living, and so we have a great relationship with them and they're really supportive of what we do.
So this part of Boscombe historically was one of the most deprived areas in the whole of the southwest of England. People didn't interact with each other, they sort of lived behind closed doors. We got a really transient population, so a real to and fro. So personally speaking, I was a bit unsure as to how it was going to roll out when the Vineyard Church came into Boscombe. Was it going to be, actually we're here and we're pressing a particular religion or an ethos? The one thing I found is that it's just been the people in number 10. It's been about people, it's been about community. It's not been about religion. And I think that has resonated so well within this particular community, and it has helped to enliven and enrich Boscombe. So thank you very much.
I love that Jesus is for the freedom, not just of our spiritual lives, but of our whole lives. And it's been incredible to see the journey that he's been on with some of our neighbours. And so one of our great friends, Tammy, who we met a couple of years ago, has just got such an incredible story of the way that the Lord has completely and utterly turned her life upside down. We just thought it'd be great for you to hear it from her.
Hi, I'm Tammy, and just recently, at the beginning of January, I turned 5 years clean and sober. And my life before Jesus was one of hopelessness and chaos. It involved running around and trying to find drugs at any means possible. It was a life of fear and not knowing what was going to happen from one day to the next. And yeah, one could say I'd sold my soul to the devil in quite literal terms. Number 10 is a house of hope today. It's a place where the lost can find refuge, where those honestly seeking a different way of life can find some solutions. And one of the most recent things that hit me was you know, the house where they host these missional meals was a house that I used to use in years ago. I recently celebrated my 4-year-old's birthday here. I had a moment while I was washing up where it suddenly dawned on me that I had people to invite to my son's birthday, and it was people that I would have shunned and who would have shunned me beforehand. And it's moments like that that remind me just how far I've come.
So one of our ministry areas is the Joy Cafe. We didn't have a central meeting point as a community for the neighbourhood to come together, and so a couple of years ago the council gave us a building which is right in the very heart of the park, and from there we grew what is now the Joy Cafe.
Joy Cafe's strapline is a lush little cafe with a big heart for building life-giving community. We really want to create a thriving community that feels like family, where people feel free just to be themselves, to laugh, share, cry, where they can get encouragement, be given hope, and yes, be served great coffee and food and drinks. So me and the core team, we can't walk through the park without being stopped and just chatting with people who we've built relationships with, which is amazing because it really shows that we are building community. One of my favourite stories is of Paul, and he's going to share that now.
I met Jesus 7 years ago. An amazing man of God had found me living underneath the derelict West Pier in Brighton. I was under there for nearly 2 years, living in a derelict caravan, literally had dead pigeons around me. And yes, he ended up in supporting me to get to here in Boscombe to go to a rehabilitation centre. And the rest is history, really. On a personal level, I'm 53 years of age, and these past 7 years is the first time that I've been accepted as a member of a community. And for me, that's an amazing thing, because I've always been felt as an outcast in my communities, from being on the streets at 14 years of age and only being a member of a homeless community. But today I'm a part of a massive community of faith, of a church that loves me, and yeah, I give that same love back, and I just put that right down to Jesus Christ my Lord.
So we have seen God do some incredible and beautiful things over the last 4.5 years, and we have seen so many people experience healing and restoration and freedom. We know that God is on the move in Boscombe, and as we simply respond to the need as the neighbourhood asks, we're seeing the kingdom come.
We are so excited about what God's been doing over the last few years, and we have no idea what's going to happen in the next few years. But what we do know is that by responding to a need with love, things change. And things don't just change in the physical, they change in the supernatural. We've already seen a huge shift in the atmosphere in Churchill Gardens, and we can't wait to see what God's got in store next.